It began with a silence that money couldn't fill. Inside the grand glass mansion on the hill, surrounded by acres of manicured lawns and luxury cars, there lived a man who had everything except peace. His name was Ethan Carter, a self-made millionaire, celebrated in every magazine, admired on every business talk show. Yet, for the first time in his life, Ethan found himself unable to breathe beneath the weight of his own success. Every morning, his days began with numbers, stock reports, meetings, deadlines, and ended in loneliness. The laughter that used to echo through his home had faded years ago, after his wife passed away and his only daughter, Emily, withdrew into silence. She was 6 then, now she was 8, still fragile, still quiet. No amount of toys, vacations, or private tutors could bring back her light. Ethan's mansion was full of people, staff, assistants, security, yet it felt empty. That emptiness grew louder each night he returned home to find his daughter asleep before he could say good night. Somewhere between chasing millions and managing empires, Ethan had lost the rhythm of being a father. Then came Clara, the new nanny. She wasn't like the others who came before. She didn't dress to impress, didn't seem intimidated by Ethan's status. Her warmth was simple, her smile unshakable. She treated Emily not like a task but like a heartbeat, patient, gentle, present. At first, Ethan barely noticed her. He hired her through an agency, like he did everything else with efficiency, not emotion. But gradually, he began to see things change. He noticed Emily humming again, drawing again, laughing again. It startled him how one person's kindness could restore what all his money could not. Still, Ethan didn't know how to reach them, his daughter or the woman who seemed to understand her better than he did. He'd stand at the top of the stairs, watching them bake cookies in the kitchen, their laughter mixing with the sound of rain outside. There was something healing in that sound, something he didn't know how to touch. But beneath Clara's calm eyes lived a truth of her own, one she hadn't spoken yet. Weeks passed. Ethan began to linger at home more often, skipping meetings, delaying trips. His assistant noticed. His investors worried. He didn't care. For the first time in years, he wanted to be home. But even in this fragile rediscovery, something gnawed at him, the fear that all of it could vanish. That maybe Emily's joy was borrowed, not his to keep. One night, Ethan found Clara sitting alone on the patio after Emily had gone to bed. The sky was heavy with clouds. He offered her a cup of tea and sat beside her in silence. For a long while, they said nothing. Then, Ethan broke down quietly, almost shamefully. He spoke of exhaustion, of how money had become both armor and prison. How he built everything except the one thing that mattered, a family that felt alive. He said, "I don't know who I am without the noise, without the success, without being important." Clara listened. She didn't rush to comfort him or pity him. She simply looked at him with a kind of understanding that made him feel seen for the first time in years. And then she whispered the truth that changed everything. She said, "You don't have to earn love, Mr. Carter. You only have to give it." He froze. The words were soft, but they shattered something inside him. For years, Ethan had been building walls around his grief, his guilt, his fear. He believed he could fix everything with money, effort, and control. But love, Clara reminded him, isn't a transaction. It's surrender. Tears came uninvited, unstoppable. Not because of what she said, but because he realized how long it had been since anyone spoke to him like that. Not as a millionaire. Not as a boss. just as a man who was lost. Dash dash. That night marked a quiet turning point. Ethan began waking up early not for work, but to make breakfast with Emily. At first, she was shy, unsure if this sudden attention would last. But as days passed, she started waiting for him at the table, her drawings laid out beside the cereal box, her laughter filling the room like sunlight. Clara often watched them from a distance, smiling softly. She knew her job was to care for Emily, but somehow, she had ended up healing Ethan too. Still, part of her heart was heavy. She knew she couldn't stay forever. Ethan's company had been suffering during his absence. The board was growing restless. Soon, he would have to choose his empire, or his peace. When that moment came, he surprised everyone. He sold his majority shares. Donated half his fortune to a children's hospital. Closed the doors of his corporate tower, the one that had once made him untouchable. The world called him crazy. The media called it a breakdown. But Ethan didn't care anymore. He took Emily to a small countryside home near the sea, far from the noise. Clara came with them, as Emily's nanny still, though everyone knew her role had long outgrown the title. Together, they began a new rhythm: morning walks, family dinners, stories by the fire. For the first time, Ethan felt something money could never buy: freedom from himself. Dash dash. Months later, when spring came, Ethan found Clara sitting by the shore, watching the waves. He thanked her for everything. For saving Emily. For saving him. She smiled and said, "I didn't save anyone. You just remembered who you were." And then she revealed the rest of the truth, the one she had never spoken before. Years ago, Clara had worked as a social worker. She had met Ethan's wife in a hospital on the day she passed away. It was his wife who had made Clara promise to look after Emily if anything ever happened. When the agency called her years later about the Carter family, she knew fate had called her to keep that promise. Ethan was silent for a long time after hearing it. Then he said only one word: "Thank you," but this time, it wasn't the thank you of a rich man accustomed to gratitude. It was the trembling, tearful thank you of someone who finally understood what grace felt like. Dash dash. Years later, people would still talk about Ethan Carter, the millionaire who walked away from it all. Some called it foolish. Others called it noble. But those who met him afterward, simple, smiling, peaceful, knew the truth. He hadn't lost anything. He had finally learned what it meant to have everything. Because sometimes, it takes losing the world to gain your soul. And all it took was one quiet truth, whispered by a woman who believed that love given freely can rebuild even the richest, most broken hearts. Dash dash. Message: wealth can buy comfort, but not connection. The true measure of a life isn't in what you own, it's in what you give, and who you become when you finally stop trying to prove your worth.